Hello. I didn't want it to feel like an afterthought, but I wanted to be able to say something. And that thing is Black Lives Matter. And if you disagree with that, maybe you shouldn't listen to my podcast. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm going to have a wide, diverse range of guests, and all of their lives matter. And I myself am a queer person, and I expect that everyone treats everyone with kindness. And the fact that we are going through what we're going through right now in this country is absolutely despicable. We've already fought an entire civil war over the fact that some people think that other people's lives don't matter. They're wrong. Everyone's lives matter. But right now, we're specifically talking about Black lives and how the police are actively, on a regular basis, destroying people's lives and murdering them. So that's my little piece there, and I want to say that my heart goes out to the families of everyone who has been injured or killed during these protests and before these protests, and it's just a sad, horrible state of affairs. And just do better, America. Come on, do better. Have you ever wondered if Mary had a little lamb? If there was an easy way to convert miles to kilometers? Or why there are no rows labeled I in Broadway theaters? Then get ready to play at home and learn something new here on Fun Facts with my wonderful friend Jenni. So yeah, how this works is basically we're just going to have a conversation about some fun and neat little interesting facts that I have taken the time and thought about you to pull up. So I actually have some history facts, I have some math facts, and I have some theater facts, because I know you're a math teacher and you do theater stuff. And you'll have one guess per category for each of those facts, and there are 3 facts in there to guess which one of the facts is a lie. We'll end up going over each of the facts and what makes each fact interesting and what, how odd they all are, etc., and what makes the fact that's a lie. And you do actually have the ability to ask for a hint for each category before you guess, and then you get 150-50 per game.
Can I phone a friend because the husband is hovering in the back?
Absolutely. All right, so which of the categories do you want to start with? Do you want to start with history, theater, or math?
You know what? I gotta go for math because that's my main focus.
All right, so I'm going to read all of the facts first before we actually start discussing them and going into it a little bit more. Okay. So fact number 1, a classic math joke is to say that topologists can't tell their donuts from their coffee cups. Fact number 2, the sequence 42858 appears in repetition when you divide by 7 and the answer isn't an integer.
Was it 42858? Okay.
Fact number 3, you can use the Fibonacci sequence to give a rough conversion of miles to kilometers.
Fibonacci sequence gives you a rough conversions of miles to kilometers. Okay, I think I know which one's the lie, but you want some discussion here.
Yeah.
What was the first one?
The first one is a classic math joke is to say that topologists can't tell their donuts from their coffee cups.
I know that one. That one's true, because anything with a hole in it is the same thing, including you yourself there, Mr. Cassidy, because your digestive tract is an actual hole all the way through your body, so a topologist actually can't tell you from a donut either.
The number 2 was the sequence 42858 appears in repetition when you divide by 7 and the answer is not an integer.
I'm pretty sure that one's the lie. 42858 is not what you would see. It's actually, but I'm not sure how to use the last one's the one that's getting me, because I'm not sure how to use the Fibonacci sequence to get a rough thing from miles to kilometers. Oh, okay. So 1-1. Let me write down the Fibonacci sequence here.
I have it if you like me to just read it for you.
If that would be easier for your listeners, go for it.
Yeah, the Fibonacci sequence, in case anyone doesn't know, is 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, and continuing on like that. It works by adding the number you're currently on to the number previous to it. So 55 plus 89 is 144. So the next one would be 89 plus 144. And I'm not going to go ahead and do that math right now for you.
200 and something.
Yep, 200 and something.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Fibonacci sequence. I'm trying to figure out. I'm almost positive that it's the thing about the 7, because it's not 4, 2, 8, 5, 8. But I can't figure out how to get miles to kilometers. Unless, okay, wait a minute. There are about 5 miles and 8 kilometers. Because that's the conversion I always learned. So I wonder if there's about 8 miles and 13 kilometers. So I'm going to go with number 2 being the lie. Final answer. How'd I do?
That is correct, actually. The sequence that does appear when you divide by 7 and the answer isn't an integer, is 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. It can start in any point in that sequence, and generally, I can't remember the specific list that the website gave me that told me how it starts, but it starts anywhere in that sequence, and it repeats throughout the decimal whenever you divide by 7.
Okay.
Yep.
That's one I knew, but I didn't remember the actual integers. Yeah.
Yeah, and then how you use the Fibonacci sequence to give rough conversions from miles to kilometers, it begins at the 3, and every next integer is the kilometer. So there's roughly 5 kilometers in 3 miles. Which is actually 4.83 kilometers in 3 miles. There's roughly 8 kilometers in 5 miles, which is actually 8.4 kilometers. There's roughly 13 kilometers in 8 miles, which is roughly, 2.87, and it goes like that, so on and so forth. Which, that's pretty interesting. Now you just have to remember the Fibonacci sequence to be able to give someone direction in kilometers.
I mean, who doesn't have 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13 memorized?
Right.
It's kind of like memorizing pi. 3.1415926535897. That's as far as I go.
Yeah, and then you were exactly correct on the math joke. The description that they gave me was an important field of mathematics is called topology. 2 objects are considered to be equivalent or homeomorphic if one can be morphed into the other simply by twisting or stretching its surface. They are different if you have to cut or crease the surface to reshape it. Consider, for example, a torus or a donut-shaped object. If you turn this upright, widen one side, and then indent the top, then you have a cylindrical object with a handle like a coffee cup, which is why they can't tell donuts from coffee cups. Well, and what are you drinking?
This is actually violet cordial.
Ah, the stuff y'all made.
Yeah, we made this. I put they're beautiful pictures. You may feel free to steal them as like your cover photo for this episode, somewhere on my Facebook page. So that is what is fueling me in tonight's episode.
I just have vodka lemonade that I'm drinking for the podcast.
That's what this is. Except it's got violets, too.
Oh, right. So which subject would you like to go to next? History or theater?
You know what? I'm going to be embarrassed by the theater questions, so I'm going to go ahead and say theater. Because for all that I do the plays at my school, yeah, not really as much of a theater buff as you might hope. So let's go ahead and be embarrassed. Let's do this.
So, the 3 theater facts that I have for you are, under the pseudonym Mr. Twist, Andrew Lloyd Webber released a top 10 single. Number 2 is, there are no rows labeled I in any Broadway theater. And number 3 is, there are only 4 Broadway theaters on Broadway Street.
Okay, there are only 4 actual theaters on Broadway.
Not quite.
So that makes,
there are only 4. Broadway theaters on Broadway.
So what you're saying is all those Broadway musicals that come out would have to take place in only 4 theaters. Is that a correct interpretation, if that is in fact the truth?
That is not quite a correct interpretation, but that's the interpretation I wanted to give you.
Okay, so there's only 4 theaters on Broadway that are considered Broadway theaters.
Yes.
Okay. So what does one have to do to get oneself into a Broadway theater if there's only 4 of them? Okay, so,
There are 41 Broadway classified theaters in total.
But only 4 of them are actually on Broadway.
Yes.
Let's see. Well, they say the neon lights are brighter there. See, this is a tough one. Okay. And so there are no rows labeled I in theater. This was the second one in... Yeah, okay, so this is a tough one. Like I said, I know absolutely nothing, and these all sound like things I should know.
Well...
Because I love Andrew Lloyd Webber. My first musical was Cats.
Nice.
Okay, when I was like 10. And not to put too fine a point on it, but it was in London. I used to usher at a fairly big theater, but maybe that's just in Broadway that they don't have any eyes.
That is what the fact gave me was that according to Broadway size, Broadway standard theaters don't have any eyes.
I can kind of see that being true, but there are only 4 actual Broadway theaters that are actually on Broadway. Okay, this is tough because renaming yourself Mr. Twist and getting a top 10 hit out of it sounds like the most likely lie, but I don't want to say that and then turn out, oh my goodness, you were totally wrong. Okay, do I get any hints?
Yeah, yep. The hint for this category is theaters abound, but composers are slim.
Broadway is famous for having all the greatest theaters. If you can make it on Broadway, you can make it anywhere. Carnegie Hall is practice. But I suppose Broadway would help too. So, theaters are many, but composers are slim. Okay. I have to go out on a limb here because I'm pretty sure I'm going to do okay on history. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask for my 50-50 in addition to this hint here. So what's the 50-50 here? Which one of those is the truth that we must get rid of?
Oh, right. So there are actually only 4 Broadway theaters on Broadway.
Really?
Yep. The other 37 Broadway theaters are located in the same district, but they're down side streets. Only 4 Broadway theaters are on Broadway. What classifies a Broadway theater is actually the size of the audience. It has to have at least 500 seats or greater. Anything below 500 seats is considered off-Broadway, meaning that there are currently more off-Broadway theaters, by double at least, than Broadway theaters on Broadway.
Okay, so that's actually really interesting. 500 seats, but okay, does a theater have to be in New York to be considered a Broadway theater?
Yes.
Is that part of it? Okay.
There are Broadway-sized theaters outside of New York, but there are no Broadway theaters outside of New York. In order to win a Tony, it has to be in New York.
Okay. Okay, so you can't have, put your production up in Chicago or even, Grand Rapids or Kalamazoo and be considered for a Tony.
Correct.
That's interesting, actually. You'd have to move it to Broadway and convince one of those theaters to spend money on you. Then how did Spider-Man get funded? We all wonder that.
Because U2 footed the bill for it. The band U2 wrote all the music and footed the bill for it.
Oh, and they have money, because they've been around since, the last century.
Yeah, yep. So that's why Spider-Man Turn Out the Dark was a unfortunate thing that happened.
Let us never speak of it again. All right. Okay. I am going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that the thing about the eyes is true, but the reason that the first one is false is because Mr. Lloyd Webber there was not, in fact, using the name Mr. Twist. He has a top 10 hit under a different name. That's my guess.
You are correct. The pseudonym that his top 10 song was under is Dr. Spin. And the song was released in 1992, and the title is Tetris. Tetris by Dr. Spin was actually written by Andrew Lloyd Webber.
I'm going to have to go look that up. I don't know how I didn't know that, but that's crazy.
Right?
It actually made it as a pop hit.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, without a reason behind it. That's the other crazy part.
Right. Yeah. And there are no I's in the Broadway theater because the letter I and the number 1, when they're typed, look too similar. And so they were having issues right when the typeface they first started bringing printed tickets. They were having issues with people going, we're in the first row. No, you're actually in row I because there is no first row. So people were getting mad. So they just said, scrap all the letter I rows. And they just shifted the whole alphabet down after I to cover those rows.
Ooh, am I allowed to add a fun fact?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
It's actually related to the number 1 in typesetting, which is weird. And you can use this later and verify it. I actually have an old-fashioned typewriter, mechanical typewriter, that does not have a number 1. Because when you went to go type the number 1, you're actually supposed to use a lowercase l. So they saved the mechanics by just making you type a lowercase l instead of typing the number 1. It's weird.
Neat. That is neat.
I had to use that to type up a resume back when I was in college in the last century. And so I asked to borrow my mom's typewriter. And it still worked. But I'm like, Mom, I need to be able to type 1. Why? Because I have to type 1993 from when I graduated from high school. There's no 1. Just use the letter. Oh my God, you're kidding, right?
Nope.
If I think about it, I'll send you a picture of it. And
nice.
You can use that. Never mind.
All right.
I'm not drunk enough. That was interesting. It wasn't funny, though.
Yeah, no, that was actually really interesting. All right. So are you ready for these facts?
I'm ready for history. I've used my 50-50, so I'm holding out for fun history facts. Let's do it.
All right. So the 3 facts are, 1, Mary actually had a little lamb. 2,
Okay.
Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. And 3, Canada and Denmark have been at war for 90 years over an island in the Arctic.
Canada versus Denmark. Arctic. Okay. Now, once again, I'm pretty sure I know which one the lie is, but pretty sure? Okay, so thinking about this through, Mary had a little lamb, place was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. That sounds like it was based on something that actually probably happened back in the early Renaissance, maybe, or possibly early industrial era. Whenever they started public schools, that's in early industrial era. So I can actually see a lamb following a kid to school. So I think this is not my final answer. I'm just working it through.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mary, I think that one's actually a truth. But Canadians are so nice.
So are Danes. Canadians and Danes, the nicest 2 countries, having a war for 90 years over a small island in the Arctic?
Because that would go all the way back to World War I, and they've and you think the UN would have come in and intervened by now. Yeah, but strangely enough, I think the lie is that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb because he actually had a whole team of people who he was working with. So I don't think he himself invented the light bulb. So I'm leaning on that being the lie, but I have a hard time imagining Canada and Denmark not just drawing a line down the middle of the island and saying, this is mine, this is yours, deal with it. So, wait, no, that's not how you say it. Canada, no, that's not the lie. Okay, I have to say this. The lie's got to be Thomas Edison.
You are correct. According to Ripley, the exact inventor of the light bulb is difficult to track down. However, the electric light bulb was around at least 40 years before the Edison bulb. However, Edison's idea to add the high-resistance tungsten carbide filament extended the life of the light bulb from a few days to a few months. Mary did actually have a little lamb. Sarah was the name of the teacher in the song, and Sarah began teaching young boys and girls in a small school not far from her home in Newport, New Hampshire in the 1800s. It was a small school, and the incident involving Mary's lamb is reputed to have taken place. Sarah was surprised one morning to see one of her students, Mary, enter the classroom followed by her pet little lamb. The visitor was far too distracting to be permitted to remain in the building, so Sarah turned him out. And the lamb, being a good lamb, stayed nearby the school until school was dismissed, and then ran up looking for Mary. The other youngsters wanted to know why the lamb loved Mary so much, and the teacher explained that it was because Mary loved the lamb. And then Canada and Denmark have been at war for over 90 years about an island in the Arctic. It started in the 30s, right after World War I, and they just didn't know who owned the land, so they were disputing between it. And the League of Nations at the time actually said that Denmark owned the little island. It's a half-mile rock with zero resources or anything on it.
But technically still in a state of war.
Yep, and because the League of Nations dissolved, the UN ruled that their ruling as the League of Nations over that tiny little island was inadmissible and didn't matter, because it's a half-mile rock that no one actually cares about. The war, quote-unquote, and in its present form, didn't begin until the 80s, when Denmark would visit and leave a bottle of brandy or schnapps and a sign saying, "Welcome to Denmark." Then Canada will visit and leave a bottle of Canadian whiskey and a sign that says, "Welcome to Canada." Generally, it's the military platoons that go up from each side. One will go up from Greenland and one will go up from Canada. And the military platoons will get drunk and have a party on the island with the booze that the other military left, and then leave their bottle of the booze from their country and the sign that says, "Welcome and leave." And that's the war that's been going on over this little island for 90 years.
If only more wars could be solved by drinking games.
Right? Well, you got all three of the lies, so you get the chance next time you're back on. If you want, you can try and come up with some fun facts that you don't think I know, which...
Oh, I gave you my best one!
So you can't use the typewriter one, as I know that one now, and it's recorded. But I had to scour for those math facts, so if you have more math facts, I'm sure you can use those. This show is recorded, produced, directed, and edited by Connor J. Cassidy, with music by Sounds Like Sanders. Our podcast is hosted on podserve.fm, and our music was found via soundstripe.com. Please follow us on all social media at FunFactsWith, and if you like the show, consider supporting us on Patreon. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, have a nice day.